done and paid.
All right.
And it's not set.
Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to start our regular Board of Selectmen meeting. Let's all rise. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Like to make a motion to accept the agenda. Everyone review the agenda.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Has everyone reviewed the minutes from the March 5th and 12th? Any changes? Any updates? Any edits? All right. Someone make a motion?
I move we accept the minutes from March 5th and 12th. I'll second them.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Communications and correspondence. I just have one communication.
Mike,
One-
did you want to hit the March 12th? I see
Oh, I'm sorry.
March 12th on
No,
there.
we should do it separately. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So that was the March 5th. So for the March 12th, you get a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve.
The March
I added
12th.
March 12th to that when I did my motion, not that.
Oh, they were for
Yeah,
both?
that's what I thought.
Oh, I didn't hear it. I'm
I
sorry.
did, yeah, I did.
My apologies. I didn't hear that. So if we did it, then.
Yeah, well, we can do it again. But I'm pretty sure I did.
No, you did.
I did, okay, yeah.
I thought maybe
All right.
we have to vote on it separately.
No.
You
We
did make
usually
the
do them one
motion.
at a time and I just didn't hear it.
Yeah,
So
no,
I-
my bad.
That's all.
So,
That's not how the Board of Ed used to do it.
so Tim made the motion.
I made.
Yeah.
And Rick's seconded, I think.
No, the first
The
motion.
first one I seconded.
Oh, you
Jim
seconded, okay.
seconded.
Got this squared away?
You all set?
Second.
Well, there really is no second motion.
I think Rick's withdrawing his motion.
I'm withdrawing.
Okay, all right. So,
And the first motion covered both
Yes.
sets of minutes.
Okay, first motion, Tim made it and Jim.
Yep.
seconded.
Correct. That was for the March 5th.
Tim,
no, we did one motion for both.
oh, you did one motion for both?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm asleep.
Don't worry,
That's all right.
apparently I missed that.
Got it.
All right. We're all set? All right, very good. All right. Now it's all easier from this point. So I only have one communication from today. At one of the last meetings, we talked about the discussion for the local option for the car tax. I had a call from a gentleman in town, a business owner, who expressed concern about the impact that particular issue might have with his business, and wanted to know more details about that. So he wanted to let us know that, he would be paying attention and following tonight, but it was a communication directly to me with regard to that issue. I also have another visit to my office today as well, discussing the same issue, wanting to know more details about that. So it is one of the agenda items. We are going to have a discussion. We're not going to vote on anything tonight. I feel like we need to discuss, understand, and then at our next meeting, we can go into further, but I know tonight I want to discuss that as one of the options. I'll let everyone know the details I have about that, from my understanding, give an update on what other towns have done and reasons why, but anyway, so that's the only correspondence I have.
Michael, I have one under correspondence. There may be a potential conflict for me, under new business, item B, the resolution for supplemental appropriations for transfer. I'll probably be taking myself out of the vote for that.
Okay.
Just so you know.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you, Michael. All right, very good. All right, public comments. Anybody online? No? All right. So we have our monthly report for the Committee on Solidarity. Do we have Liz or one of them on the line? Oh, you're gonna be doing it. I'm so used to. Come on up. You've been-
Recently appointed chair of Solidarity. To begin, I want to thank you, Mike, for helping us to get our solidarity
Yes.
message on the community homepage. We offered a message of support and solidarity, reminding Portland citizens to stay strong. against racism, bigotry, prejudice, and violence. We also were offering some self-care tips from one of our members, Jackie Davis, who's a certified diversity professional. Hopefully, you all noticed we now have a monthly column in River East from the Committee on Solidarity. The next one is this Friday. We are typically going to begin those by announcing heritage celebrations from a list that we're also circulating to town offices and to the schools. Our work with the Historical Society contributed to the success of the February 22nd Black History Month Voices of Portland presentation. So that was part of the Black History reminder for folks. On April 22nd, we're going to be co-sponsoring a film screening and discussion of Americans with No Addresses. The other co-sponsors are Portland Faith Leaders, the Portland Historical Society, and the Brownstone Forum. The discussion will be led by representatives from Street Fire Ministries. On February 27th, we held the first State of Black Portland discussion group, and this is something I raised with you all before. It's framed very loosely on the state of Black America, which is a report the National Urban League has been producing for over 30 years. Our hope is to talk with African-American Portland residents who identify as African-American or Black to discuss their take, given the framework of that report, their take of life in Portland. So we had that first meeting. It was instructive, it was interesting, and eventually, we will roll it into some kind of report back. But for now, it's just going to be a series of discussions. The next one's going to be at the end of April. And we are continuing to encourage Black and African-American residents or parents of Black and African-American children in Portland to join us with this. So you'll probably see that in our monthly announcements. We are also, as part of the Heritage, reminding folks that March 31st is International Transgender Day of Visibility, and we're reminding our Portland neighbors to stand as allies with our trans and non-binary community members, a message with increased relevance each day. On May 8th, we'll be having a book discussion to honor African-American and Pacific Islanders Month. We'll be discussing the George Takei biography, They Called Us Enemy, about the U.S. internment of 120,000 people of Japanese descent in World War II. Again, a topic that is also increasingly relevant today. Those are the more immediate things we've been doing in our upcoming, further down the agenda. We're continuing to work on our role in Middletown's June 7th Pride event. There will be more about that to follow, and the Juneteenth event, which this year will be June 14th. Questions?
No?
All right. Thank
All right.
you.
Cynthia, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so the next issue is, or next agenda item is the recent House bill that was passed, 7067, which discusses a local option for calculating property taxes or car taxes. I've had a lot of discussion over the last 4 or 5 days about this. I've been looking at other towns as to what they're doing and trying to better understand all the details. I've had our assessor review numbers. Let me share some of the information I have with you. I'd like to have a discussion, get a feeling for everyone as to what they know and what else they want to know. But there are towns that are both rejecting it for good reasons as well as taking it in for good reasons. So quick summary of the bill. The way car taxes are done right now is based on, I guess, the Kelly Blue Book or the NADA evaluations. And there's a step starting from, I believe, 85% to 90%, and it works its way down over the years. That's been used for a couple of years now. The state realized when they capped out the car tax at 32.46% a couple of years ago, that it would have an effect on towns. It has. Portland, over the last 2 to 3 years, has probably lost $750,000 to $800,000 in taxable money through car taxes, which is great if you're a car owner, but it did force us to increase the taxes on other places with the home. So it did have an impact on us, when they capped that. The state has come back and done this bill, as something that may remedy that, in terms of some of the tax laws. So, I've looked at some of the numbers and I tried to look at the examples of the typical homeowner in town to get an idea at least of what that impact would be. So I'll share some of the information I have now. This is down. That's down. This is courtesy of Rich, just to give you an idea of one impact where it may be extra compensated. So for example, in tax year 2023, we had a total of 9,729 cars. Out of that number of cars, about 6,500 were passenger cars. Those passenger cars, if you looked at the tax that was paid on those cars in average in the town, the cost to.
Mike, we don't have that.
Yeah,
We
we're
still
on-
have-
Yeah, I have,
There's a house.
Yes, there you go. You got the next one. Yeah. You'll see on the top, it has all cars, there we go. Has all cars.
Oh, okay.
On the top, 2023, 9,729 cars. The total grand list was $105 million. The average tax bill was $351 overall for all of the cars across the board. If we keep the same tax right now, the total number of cars is just a couple less. 1 year later, the total grand list is $90 million and change, a $14 million reduction. The average cost for taxes for car owners to be $302. Under HBA 7067, the grand list for those same cars, the 9726, will be about $100 million. The average tax for every car spread out over all of those would be $337. So the difference would be just $29 or so between 2003 and now. Difference between what it would be if we keep the same thing would be at $302. So it would save money under the HB 7067. It would be about a $14 difference between 2 years ago or between last year and now. But the problem with that is that it doesn't include all the businesses in town and the trucks and other things. So what I need to do, and I've asked Rich to do this, I've asked him to pull the fleet businesses in town and the other business accounts in town to get an idea of what impact it would be on there. For residents, it's only a typical residence, 2.5 cars. The impact will be negligible and maybe a little reduction in taxes. But versus with the current plan. But for businesses, it may be dramatically more. So I'm trying to look into that. I will have more information for you on that as well. But again, it may be the tax burden may be on a smaller group of people that we want. But for homeowners, it doesn't seem like it would be a big difference, and it may be a small difference. So I will get additional information back to you on that. But those are those numbers.
Mike, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
On this example that you're going over.
Right.
Are these vehicles being taxed at the town mill rate or is it?
So it's at the capped rate.
Oh, it's at the
it's
capped
at the
rate, the
capped rate, yes.
32.46.
32.46, yes. So it's at the cap rate. The only difference between the way it's done now and the way that bill allows for the local option is we're just valuing the car differently. So it goes up 5%. It starts at 90% for year one and then works its way down. So the valuation of the car becomes more, but the mill rate stays the same. But again, I wanted to get a sense of how much it would impact our voters and our.
So on the average value,
Hmm.
is that at 90% on this example, like in this 10,809?
So that number is a combination of all the cars in town. So Rich took all the numbers in every individual one for all of the different all the different car owners. And that's a valuation based on his computer model. I just consolidated down.
And that's
to one
using
number.
the like Kelly Blue Book NADA?
That's using the Kelly Blue Book on that. Yes.
Okay.
You know, you're talking about the 2003 or 2023, I mean?
Yeah, was it different in 23?
So 23 was the Blue Book value. with
Okay.
NADA. The newer one, is with the new valuation,
Oh, this is
Yes.
with the new.
with the new valuation,
Okay.
yes.
So
So-
So it's still an increase from last year then.
It would be it's, well, it's a two, yeah, for, it would still be a slight increase
Okay.
from 302 to 337.
Yeah.
So it would be a slight increase. The other side of that is by, again, I'm still undecided on if it makes the most sense to even push for this, but on the other side, we've had to we kick up the mill rate for homeowners in town. So it's a little bit more here, a little bit less on the other side, but they're balancing out. So,
I just don't like how the scale doesn't depreciate as fast as cars depreciate.
right. And that is.
That makes no sense to me.
And that is one of the reasons why some towns have not done it. So, for example, right now, Clinton, Deep River, Middletown have done it. Berlin just did it the other night because for them it made sense. The numbers made sense for what they had. But there's a number of towns in the area that have not. Chester's not doing it. Old Lyme, Old Saybrook. I know it doesn't matter what other towns do, but they all did it for different reasons. Either their existing mill rates were already below what the.
So it didn't
taxes.
impact them
So
at
it
all.
didn't make a difference at all. So, but I thought it was worth the discussion. Again, I don't have enough information because I want to dig a little deeper, but we talked about this. It's something that may shuffle the dollars around.
When is our reevaluation? Is that this year?
No,
Next year?
so it's funny you should say that. So it's starting at the end of this year, I believe in July, if I'm not mistaken. I talked to Rich earlier today. The last time he did a reevaluation, the average taxes or car taxes went up about 11 or 12%. So across the board, once he did the reeval. So that impact back then was about 2 mil on our rates overall for homeowners. So it had a significant impact when they did a reevaluation for residents in town. That may be the same. You don't want to put any money on it. You didn't want to say for sure, but based on the valuations increase in the last 4 or 5 years, something similar was I think possible, is what he said. So-
Because usually when we have a reevaluation, the values of things go up, but our
and-
mill
and
rate goes
That's
down.
exactly right. So
So
now it wouldn't kick in. for
this
about-
would be bad for car owners to accept this, and then we have a lower mill rate next year.
Well, it wouldn't kick in for 2 years, until 28 or 29. Because once it's done per Rich today, it's at least 2 years from now. But at that point, mill rate would drop down based on what happened last time, whatever
Yeah.
the number's going to be. And look at houses, what's unless something completely crashes over the next year, right? But right now, the way housing prices are,
Mhm.
I can't imagine it's going to go down. I mean, it's already gone up significantly.
Yeah.
And a 30% increase or 40% increase in housing value in the last 5 years, isn't going to translate to that same percentage increase, but the last evaluation was about, I think 11 or 12% is what he guessed, what he had. So that's coming. It won't affect this budget, and probably the next one, but it will affect, budget or two from now. So anyways, so I think my only intent tonight was just to at least get the conversation going. I'm following, the minutes of the other meetings as to what the rationales are. I'm having Rich look into the numbers deeper so I can understand how it'll impact everyone, businesses, et cetera. And I'll have more data.
Yeah, I think a little bit more granular look at this to understand how it's gonna hit, different constituencies. Portland's
Right.
important. I think it's also important for us to take a look based on those books. I know that a few years ago, coming out of the pandemic and not being able to get new cars, that the value of used
Right.
cars really spiked.
Right.
And I think that has abated quite a bit now. So I think we probably should try to get a view, because what we may also find is that the value of used cars when we go through reval are gonna actually fall more, just like they went up more than we thought. 4 years ago. I think they may, we should see how that comparison's gonna play out as well.
Yeah.
Just so that, as a board, we have all that
It's
information.
been very volatile,
Yeah.
so absolutely over the last couple of years. So
And Mike, I just want to understand on here, the sheet you gave us with all cars
Yeah.
versus passenger cars, and all cars includes
all vehicles.
all vehicles,
Yes.
whether they're owned, like commercial combination plates, whether they're business owned or personal owned?
Yes.
Okay. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
But if we could
Right.
get that breakdown and have passenger vehicles, say versus commercial,
Yes,
right? And
we're working on that
Yeah,
right now.
right.
It's also picking out maybe the top half dozen or so of businesses in town with large fleets to see what the impact would be on that. So we're getting granted on it. We're getting granted on that as well, just to see what it would be. So,
Mike,
yes,
so I understand, it's in 23, the average value was based on the Kelly Blue Book.
yes.
And then in 24, where it dropped to 9,300,
Yes.
what was that? Was that also based on?
No, that should be the same. That didn't change.
So, oh, so that 93,
Because those cars aged.
Right.
okay, so they,
Right. They
all right, so-
depreciate.
all right, and then the 10,372 is per this.
And it was about, if I'm not mistaken, it was about 16% that it increased in value over that time, so. And then that has to do with the falling value of the used. car.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, pretty dramatic,
Hmm,
so. All right, so no real action to be done on that, but I just wanted to at least present some stuff. I'll provide you with additional information from other towns in terms of what, what details they're seeing. But specifically details in our town, what's going on with, how it affects the businesses and others, so.
well, is this gonna be an issue with this year's budget?
It has a potential impact on our budget. One of the key points right now is if we decide not to adopt this. If we decide to adopt it, it'll be a shift of taxes, right? It'll go more on cars. And I've heard valid reasons for that. If you're driving a car, you're using the roads, maybe having a little more of a burden, with that car, using up the roads, wear and tear, whatever the case is. That could justify a small increase there, but then, the effect on the homeowners and what the impact is there, because it's still feeding the same pot.
what was the estimate? If it was implemented exactly as it is right now, what's the estimated impact on the average?
So,
on the-
right-
On the mill rate?
Right now, the mill rate, as it is right now, if you don't do anything with this, is 1.49, is what our
Is
increase
is
is
the
right now.
increase, right?
Is increased right now. Obviously, the car tax is frozen, or it's capped at the 32.46. If we incorporate this, it generates about $320,000 additional tax money at that end, and it lowers the mill rate to 1.11.
It'd be about a
So it's like a third of the
about
mill.
a third of the mill.
So the impact would be a third of the mill less for homeowners, and it would be an increase in probably close to a wash for most homeowners, most single family residents, but the business owners would probably incur a greater cost. Or if you have newer cars, obviously that's going to have a bigger impact because you're now evaluating those cars at MSRP, 90% of that, 85% of that. And I think, Ben, you may remember this is why I think at 8 years or 9 years, it goes to 50% of the value. So if you look at your car, if you buy a car for 40 grand, is it worth half that value after 8 years? Is it worth 20?
Well, that's what I'd like to see from Rich
Right.
is, and I know every car is different,
Right.
but if he could show us a couple of common cars and what their depreciation value is compared to this scale.
Yeah.
Because like I said, after 5 years, I don't know many cars that are still worth 70% of what you paid for them.
Right.
So it seems that we're overvaluing the vehicles just to keep our tax base up.
Yeah, we need to, I agree, Bob. We need to make sure it's not an artificial shift
Right.
Yeah,
towards,
And I believe the legislatures were doing that to try to undo some of the damage they did because as those of you following the Capitol, I mean, there's a lot of unfunded mandates we get from the state.
Mhm.
And this is one of those where they decided to do that, but it had an impact on a lot of towns. It certainly affected us.
because they only funded the difference for 1 year, correct? So they capped what we
Here's a
could
little bit,
tax
right?
and helped us once
Look at
and
the
then
bu-
said, figure it out the rest on your own.
Look at the fight for special ed money, right? The back and forth and so it's an ongoing dynamic equilibrium between that, but
Mhm.
but it's at least worth the discussion, whatever we end up deciding to do. Is ultimately in the best interest of the town, have it make sense, be explainable to someone in a way that justifies it. And then we can move forward, but it's worth the start of the discussion. So I will get more information for all of you and we'll discuss this at a further time.
All right.
Any other questions on that one? All right.
Hey, Mike, can you hear me?
All right, appointments to boards and commissions. What do we have?
I have one. I have Marilyn McGrath. I'd like to nominate Marilyn McGrath to a seat on the Inland Wetlands Commission. This is the one replacing Nancy Brault, who resigned.
Second that.
Thank you, Tim.
Any discussion? All right. Ready for the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Hey, John.
Hey, John. Step right up on it.
I'm here, guys. Just want you to know.
All right.
I nominate, I nominate Terry Grady for the, America 250 Portland, Connecticut Committee.
I'll second that.
Great. Any discussion? So I've known Terry for a while. I think many of you have. He's been involved in a lot of town activities and committees before. He's motivated. He wants to get back in this thing. He'll probably document the whole thing with 10,000 photographs over the time, but he's a good man for the case. Ready for the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Welcome aboard, Terry. All right.
I have one more nomination for the America 250 Portland, Connecticut Committee, and that's Ben Serb.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All right. Ready for the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries.
So is that committee down to one full-time and two alternates then?
So
after
we
the
now
fact?
have all seven of our, and we are about to have another alternate.
Yeah, I'll nominate Sharon Hoyt as an alternate.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? Have we all known her for a while?
Well, I think it'll be helpful with fireworks. and-
With all the things.
Her
that we could
outstanding
do.
experience.
Yeah, yeah, lots and lots and lots of experience.
Plus she can take the minutes.
No, Ben gets to do that. So, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, so we have one alternate spot, so we're close to getting that committee started and moving, so that is fantastic. Welcome aboard, Chair. All right, new business. So every year we need to re-up our participation in this event. Does anyone want to read the resolution describing what we're going to be doing?
Sure.
All right,
Do you want me to do this in the form of
yes,
a motion?
yes.
And the motion would be to set the public hearing on April 2nd at 6:50 PM for the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act, NNA program participation dated March 19th. The form is here is dated March 19th. Whereas the state of Connecticut Department of Revenue Services is providing the town of Portland the opportunity to participate in the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act, thus allowing interested nonprofit organizations within a municipality to submit applications. And whereas in accordance with the state of Connecticut Department of Revenue Services, the Board of Selectmen shall hold a public hearing on all programs. The governing body of the municipality must vote to approve these programs. Now therefore, be it resolved that the town of Portland Board of Selectmen does hereby designate the first selectman, Michael A. Pelton, as liaison to handle all Neighborhood Assistance Act matters.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I just have one question. For the next public hearing that we're setting and then the special town meeting.
Mhm.
We have our regular meeting that day, so how are we gonna have our regular meeting and special town meeting both start at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, we did say that at the same time. That is correct.
So should this be set for 6:45
Do we want to
Actually,
and then 6:50,
move everything
actually,
5 minutes
it should be,
early?
it actually should be 6:50, right? No,
This should be
6:50.
No,
6:45.
I'll tell you what, I'll amend the motion. I think it's a good idea. I'll amend the motion to make it 6:45 for the public hearing.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I second the amended motion.
All right, any more discussion now? Good catch, Bobby.
No.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. All right. This next one, I want to have a discussion about because we have two things that have come up in the last couple of days especially, but as you know, we have a boiler situation at Brownstone, an expensive boiler situation. I have Bob Shea here to maybe explain a little more details on that, but it's quite expensive. We have the funding to be able to do that from some excessive funding available. So we do have that. We'll start with that first. So Bob, come up here, please.
Good evening, everyone. So here I am again. So just a real quick recap on it. A few weeks ago, I got called down to Brownstone because we were experiencing some failures with boiler number one. And when I got there, we had a considerable amount of water on the floor. We were having a steam issue, so we immediately shut it down. Once we were able to disassemble the housing and some of the insulation that protects the boiler itself, we found a significant leak in more than one section, about 4 different sections. Unfortunately, not on the end of the boiler sections, but in the center. It's a 15-section boiler. Each boiler section weighs about 850 pounds. Those boilers are monsters, and they are steam. And these particular boilers have 2 chambers. You have basically a water jacket and a burner jacket or water and fire. What I did find through the investigation was that I felt, based on the evidence of the boiler, that we were leaking into the chamber, the fire chamber. Not a good situation at all. So immediately I shut that boiler down. We're in a warmer environment now, which is nice. We're getting warmer. That school has a tendency to be pretty warm as it is because it's a steam system. So we try to control that. But where we are now is I brought in an expert to really go over the boiler, and the experts are the boiler manufacturer, and he came in and worked with me for a good hour, really taking a look at the boiler. Vintage boiler, 1988-ish. It's seen its day. They're both the same, boiler 1 and 2, both installed basically around the same time. So we're seeing evidence on boiler number 2 that we could be in potential losing that in the near future as well. So that was pretty concerning. So with that said, he did some overall investigation, pulling some of the material off, scraping down some of the areas where the gaskets are. And he felt that the existing segments that exist there now, not the ones that would need to be replaced, but the other ones that haven't failed yet, are too pitted. And if we were to break apart the boiler and start trying to repair those areas that are damaged now, the other ones would fail. So basically on the cost to rip it all apart and try to do that, and the percentage that we would get back that it would work was too low. So he recommended a full replacement. So that's where we are today. So currently I have 1 boiler running, same vintage, same age, showing extreme signs of wear as well. And as I run that boiler without a lag or a backup, I'm putting more wear and tear on that boiler as it is. The concern with this whole project not only is money, these are very expensive boilers to put in. A lot of the money is in rigging. The boiler room is in the basement for the Brownstone. We have to rig each individual section in and build the boilers in place. So we'll have to do that. So there's quite a bit of money in rigging. We have to rig it in through the small window or the larger window or smaller door on the Middlesex Avenue side of the building, which is going to take quite a bit of time and money. So that's all in the estimate. We've had professional riggers come down, more than one. It's taken a look at it, and they certainly can do it. It's just a long time to do that. There's many hours in that. And it's certainly not a very safe environment to do that. So they have to make sure that they bring enough people in to do it safely. So that's really where we are. My concern is no matter what we do, today, tomorrow, a week from now, I have a 28-week lead time to get steel. That brings me into heating season. That's a concern. So the sooner we can get these things on order, go through our process of bid, which I would recommend to see if we can save some money. I've already read a bid spec. Tom has reviewed that for me, and he's been wonderful. I brought this to his attention last week, and he's been all over it with all that he's doing here with the budget, and this being this season. He's taken that time to work with me to really come up with an opportunity for some funding so we can get this done. Because to be perfectly honest with you, my capital budget is nil to none. My my maintenance fund 11 is something that I rely on for emergencies every day. That's becoming limited, and I didn't really know what to do. We need I need that contingency there to continue to keep the schools open. So I was concerned that if we had to use all that money and then with some other, I'd be in a tough situation going into the new school year. So I can't thank him enough for all he did to try to come up with ways that we can fund this to get this done. But the recommendation from the manufacturer is, and we spoke with Mike and we had a nice conversation last week. The recommendation as well from the manufacturer is to save to do the 2 boilers, because eventually we're going to be in the same situation to do the other. So at least to get the controls done, I've worked with our control contractor. They've been wonderful. We're hoping to get all the new controls in there at the same time, so we have some great longevity, as well as being able to operate those. Right now, I work on a 98 Windows-based computer to try to run the 3 elementary schools. It's got a floppy disk. So we're moving in a better direction each day, I hope, and this is going to bring us up with the help of our contractor who does our controls now at the high school and helps me every day. That's part of this as well. So Tom was very concerned that if we didn't do that, we'd be in a pickle and we wouldn't be able to even control the boilers, which we have to efficiently.
Is there anyone else that would be able to supply them? Not for price reasons, but for delivery reasons that could get us the equivalent, but faster.
So we have to go with the same boiler. So we are going to go out to bid and hopefully we'll have some bites on that. And then I'm hoping as well, Bob, that we might be able to get a better lead time. From those that are in the industry, they're all around 26 to 28 weeks. They're all floating that same number to me. Because I was concerned that maybe, this distributor was a little busy so I did look at that. It could happen, we don't know. But I also look at potential that it could get worse based on where we're moving in our country. Tariffs, we're not sure. Pricing could affect that. We could have delays. But right now, as of last week, the quote was 28 weeks. They hope to be able to pull that up. Whatever they can do for me would be better. Because I'm going to be firing up that boiler in November. And it's going to be 1. And you're just going to pray that it's going to fire up and it's going to run for that month or so while we get these boilers installed. So, and that's not the greatest time to be doing work. In a school, in a basement, if it's cold already, but we'll get it done. We'll get it done.
Another thing, not that it matters, what's the difference between material and the labor and rigging? Like, what's the rough breakdown?
It's hard to say. I mean, labor is big. Labor is big. It could be, it's not really a 50-50. I think labor is a little less. I think the materials are up in the 80s for the boilers. Each.
Yeah.
The biggest part of the boiler is we did some boilers at Valley View and I was confused at first because they seemed to be much cheaper. But when I looked into what was actually done, we didn't do any burners and controls. Those are the ones. So these are going to incorporate all new burners and controls. And really it's in the burners. The controls aren't too bad, but it's the burners and their controls that are an expensive part of that network.
Now, once you get the materials, Bob, because I know you're saying we're looking at that 26 to 28 week lead, how long does it actually take to do the install, right? And then the second question would be, would it be sequenced with, for example, you'd replace burner 1 that's down, and then you can use burner 2 because it will hopefully be in the warmer part of heating season, right? And hopefully burner 2 fires. But would you kind of sequence them that way so you've got something running at that time and then shut it, once the new one's in, shut it down and do the second one, or do they need to be built in parallel?
No, we can't do that because we're going to be building during heating season. So unfortunately, the one that failed is behind the one that didn't. So it makes it a little harder for rigging. And the biggest part is it's probably 2 full days just to break it down and rig the old one out.
Yeah.
Before you even rig the new one in. So there's a lot of rigging time, bringing the sections in and stuff. So you have a disassembly safely, rigging stuff out as we go, prepping the pad, making sure that our existing piping is good. And we're unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I was hoping in the future, depending on what we were gonna do, because they needed to be replaced anyways, get away from steam. I was really, working with our consultants with controls and our HVAC consultant. I was pushing to try to get away from steam and do something a little more efficient. But the new stuff is efficient for steam. It just takes a little more. We can't do that now because I would have to replace all the headers. We'd be way up in money. All the header pipes and everything would have to be changed. So this is the best fit to get the school up and running. And longevity on the boilers, 20 years.
It just,
Or more,
it'll
30.
just lock us into steam now for, as we move forward.
Yeah, which is fine, we'll in the future probably do some upgrading on our steam exchangers, and we've done a whole bunch of steam traps, and there's more stuff to do related to that, but you put new in an old school, and sometimes the old stuff shows itself again. It's attached to the new stuff, so. But we're gonna do as much as we can down there with this funding to get that thing up and running in really good shape. I mean, the school really needs a new power plant, really does.
So is that assuming that this school is gonna stay active as a school?
Well, it's either way, if it's active as a school, it's a benefit. If it's active as a town building, it's a huge benefit as well. And if it ends up not staying with the town, it's a benefit too. Because it's got a brand new system in it. It's really the heart of you're not going to do much without, a good heating system in a building like that for sure. So I don't think it's a loss either way.
Well, good. So this is the first I'm seeing this. So what are,
So-
go through the whole process of.
Actually, there's two things about this that we have. So what we were going to be asking for tonight was two things. Was one, thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
So the furnace and getting the boiler fixed came up a couple days ago. It's a big deal. Tom was able to find the resources to do that. And I'm glad we were able to do that. The second part of this is additional funding for the sidewalk project that was started under Ryan for a connectivity grant that we had. So we've already done Highland and Homestead, and there's additional work we can do, but it has to be assigned to sidewalks. That was what the specific grant was for. So they have looked for where else they can use some of this money. They've talked about starting from the drugstore and working north on Main Street, as well as a couple of additional places. I was hoping to have Ryan on tonight to kind of walk through more details with you. Really should have had two separate ones, but we combined this together tonight. I don't think we can separate this out since the resolution's already written. We may not be able to approve the money that he needs for the boilers tonight. If anyone has any questions, I know Bobby, you were asking more details about why we need that additional funding.
Well, that's my question. Is
Right.
This $100,000 for the sidewalks, is that for Highland and Homestead, or it's left over from Highland and Homestead?
It's money needed to, it's already done Homeland and Highland and Highland and Homestead has already been done. This is for additional sidewalks that they're looking to fill out the grant. They're looking to spend all the money, but we have to match some in order to do that. So our end.
So is this our match?
This allows us to spend the rest of the grant money. They don't want it back at the state. They said spend it. So Jacobson and those, they're trying to find the best way for us to utilize this money and spend it. But I think more details are needed, and I'd rather have a full explanation, especially for details on this. They're still trying to figure out exactly where they can go with it to get the most use of the money.
Well, that's my question. This doesn't specifically say where it goes
Right.
to.
It
It just goes to a sidewalk project.
Right. And because it's still an ongoing process. I spoke to Joe Dillon earlier today in terms of where they're working on where they're gonna get this to get the most impact, and they're still working on that. It has not been finalized yet. But they're working on it. They're trying to find the best use of it right now, but it's not 100% completed yet.
How come we don't get this?
So will it come back to us? or
Yeah, so,
Yeah, it'll come back.
It'll come back to us.
so if we approve this tonight, we'll get the say in where it's gonna be used.
I will fill you in on where they're looking at. I'll invite you to the meeting that they have, so that we can, because there's some requirements because of the connectivity grant part of it. So there's certain ones that are qualified. I'll make sure you're involved in that process. But again, if you feel more comfortable having it explained first, which I understand.
Well, I hate when we bundle stuff together because I don't want to hold Bob and the school up
Right.
with the funding for the
Right.
boilers.
No,
So
and-
wait till our April meeting.
Right.
And either get it explained better to us or split it into two different resolutions.
Right. I understand that. I understand that. So now, Bob, if we, what's that?
I'm just trying to look and see if there's a way to strike part of
Right.
it to do what we want to do tonight.
Right,
So this 100,000 for the sidewalk,
right.
that's in addition to the grant money we got?
So the grant money, they have to match some dollars from us, so we need another $100,000 in order to complete it, to be able to spend down that
The rest
grant.
of it,
So
okay.
yes,
And then the boiler is
it's
325,
325 for that, yes. So
and that's for 2 boilers?
it's for both boilers, yes, and perhaps one of the controllers if they need it, but it covers the 2 boilers and insulators.
And where are we getting this money from?
So we did have more funds available, as the year's winding down, we had money available in a couple of the contingency funds. So Tom was able to find it, for both of these. So it's available from, money that was not spent. So I was pleasantly surprised as well, but I know Tom also was digging to be able to find it because of the emergency nature of this, so.
All right, so we gotta read.
I'm fine with approving it. I just want a better say in where
Absolutely.
the sidewalk money goes.
Yeah,
Well, I was gonna say, where is the current plan for
so
the sidewalk to go?
it is in flux because they're doing the engineering right now and looking at the different areas. So some of it is being worked on right now. But it is not completed yet.
Do we?
But it's, when I say it's.
'Cause I know we were looking at, for example, trying to go down from, the intersection in town coming back, right?
Right.
That was one of them.
Right.
Do you know the other areas that are being looked at?
No, because there's a couple different
There's a
options on the
couple
table
different
right now,
options,
so,
okay.
yeah, it's a couple different options, but, again, I've spoken to Ryan about it, talked to Joe today, Dylan, and they're working on it, but because of the urgency here, and because it's close, and because I believe there is a deadline with, spending the state grant money, they don't want to take it back, so that's why the urgency of adding it, but it's up to the board to decide if you want to do it. If we combine them together, I'll make sure that everyone's aware that I'll let you know when we have the next meeting. You guys are welcome to come into there and we can walk through this process together. So.
I say we vote on it tonight
Okay.
then and just
All
move
right.
on.
Anything you wanna read?
The only other
Yeah.
question I have about the sidewalks
Right.
is in our, I don't have my budget book with me, but we do have a capital expenditure for sidewalks for
75,000.
75,000. Can we get rid of that line item if we do this?
I don't know.
Because then we could take it right out of cap, like that would, it would be a good deduction from our budget.
I know Tom was working on a number of things to make this happen,
Mhm,
or whatever, so I don't have him here tonight.
mhm.
So,
Cause I'd like to see that line item go away if we can just incorporate it in the sidewalk. And unfortunately now I can't vote on this
right,
because I've abstained myself, but I am abstaining myself from the boiler end of it, but the sidewalk stuff I'm concerned with.
right.
So I'm gonna catch 20. I can't really do much
Oh,
about
you're
that.
bringing up a good point.
Yeah, just
Yes, I do.
bundling these things is just, it makes a logistical nightmare out of the whole thing, unfortunately.
It made it simpler from the accounting point of view
Mhm.
at that end because of some other necessary steps, but.
Hey, Mike,
Well,
I
yes.
think Bob may have some information
Oh, Bob.
to share.
Share a little bit, because I did it.
I mean, the only thing I don't like about it
Mhm.
is it ties you into something where you can want to vote for one thing, but not the other.
I
And you're stuck. You have to vote for it.
Well, what I'm thinking, Bob, is maybe we structure the motion that we approve the resolution as is, so that the monies are authorized. But we, with the restriction that before the monies for the sidewalk are authorized, it comes back before the board. Right, maybe.
either for
restructure the
review
motion
or
that way.
an explanation of all the details,
Yeah,
finalized.
something
Yeah.
like that, and
Yeah,
then
I think that's fair.
at least then we're kind of covering both, but we're also giving Bob what he needs to get that
Absolutely.
clock started.
Yeah, so just briefly, and I don't want to confuse you anymore, I did a lot of connectivity stuff with the state. And it is a process. So what they're doing right now is Tom is looking for the 100 to match the money that we have to get that, a project done with money that's left. What happens is with the state during your application, your connectivity grant money can only be used in certain areas in town. It has to connect to your rural area. So that's one parameter. So you can't go anywhere you want. You got to kind of come into your center.
But for the grant we got, we already matched it. We gave
Right.
200,000 for the $1 million to finish Main Street.
So I think there's money left. and
This
they're
is
looking
left
to
over
expand on
from
that. So we'd have to
The
fund
Highland
more.
Homestead project.
Right. So that does fall into that area because it
Yeah.
was always on the original one 4 or 5 years ago that we looked at. And then with that said, the engineers need to look at how far can you get with curb cuts, areas like that, that reduce your linear footage because you have to do a lot of driveways or curb cuts or new ADA compliant intersections and stuff. So that all folds into how far can you get? And then you look on the map and you start looking at what's the best bang for our buck as far as linear footage. But we have to still stay in that mapped area. They have to stay in that connectivity area. So it's hard. You
I
know,
guess
you're-
that's the area that we would like to know. What
It
is
is.
that area?
yeah.
We'd like
yeah.
to see a diagram.
So, right, and they can do that too, but I
Because-
will tell you, it's your central downtown area.
Well, with the
Connectivity.
one that was on High Street and 66 to Airline, we use the excess money from that to go up High Street
Mhm.
because it connects to the schools.
That is correct. That's still part of your, and that's a major artery considered. So anything like that,
'Cause
Bartlett near
There's
the
3 pools on High Street.
Correct. So you have to look at your connecting foot traffic to your business or your schools or
Town
your
buildings,
health
yeah.
area or your town buildings. So it does it drops off pretty quick when you start working your way out.
Mhm.
And so do sidewalks.
Yeah.
As well, once you get out of there. So the connectivity process it's big. And it requires all that engineering work prior to even talking to them about it. You have to submit the plans, which is an awful lot of work just to get the flavor on the approvals. So being off Main Street is a little easier, but it's still a process. I think you will have a choice, but I think the engineers are probably going to give you the best choice that you have to get the most done.
Mhm.
Because they always have. So.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Do you know how much money we have left? I don't, I know they need the 100 in order to complete it, to spend down the last dollar, but that was the number they do that. So Jim, I like your idea, so we make a motion.
Make a motion.
Approve this with a caveat that we want to know some of the details.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's, I can, if you want, I'll just say, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution, dated March 19th, and basically, actually, how do we want to structure? So I want to make sure we're good with this.
The meeting will be at
Basically, we have to
7:50.
set the public hearing date, right?
Yeah.
So is that what we want?
7:50.
Yeah, we're gonna move, we'll move it, 7 or 6:50, right?
6:50.
6:50, and then the special town meeting at 6:55.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect.
Let me make sure I get that.
Someone want to read the resolution?
Yeah. I think-
Aren't we gonna, don't we have to put an amendment on it?
I think that we're gonna,
I'm gonna read it as written.
I think we can read it as written, but basically make that what I'm thinking is that when we make the motion that we're gonna to adopt it and move to the, go to the hearing.
Right.
Is that we add the caveat that before the project is released.
Mhm.
Right, because this is gonna release the fund, like the hearing would release the funding. But before the actual project is released, that the selectmen have basically gotten all the details on where this, and been able to discuss where the project's gonna be
The
completed.
answer is fair.
Okay.
All right, I'm good with that. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Michael, you too?
Go right ahead, guys.
I think Michael's,
I know
He's recused himself.
He's recused.
All right,
All right,
Tim, you got this.
so we already have a motion on the table, or I'm.
We gotta
already-
read it.
Yeah,
don't we?
From the top,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
the resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, March 19th, 2025, supplemental appropriations for transfer out non-cap, non-recurring BOE and transfer out cap non-recurring town and increase to estimated structural permits and use of general fund balance. Whereas 2 funding matters will be addressed in this resolution. Brownstone Intermediate School boiler replacement and sidewalk restoration, non-grant. And whereas the biz operates using two Wheel McLean boilers that are over 35 years old, and whereas one of the boilers recently failed and cannot be repaired, and whereas due to the age of the boilers, it would be optimal to replace both within the same project, and whereas approximately $325,000 will be needed for the replacement of the boilers and potentially control upgrades, and whereas there is a long lead time on the delivery of the boilers and funds needed to be in place in order for to order the boilers. And whereas the town has received grant funding via connectivity grant and local capital improvement grants for sidewalk projects. And whereas the funds available were used for design of the connectivity grant and the Highland Homestead sidewalk projects. And whereas it is anticipated that an additional $100,000 of funds will be needed to complete these projects above allowable grants cost and funds that have already been set aside. And whereas the connectivity project and the Highland Homestead sidewalk projects are going out to bid at the same time in the near future, and whereas revenues in line item 01-000-000-00328 structural permits exceeds the original budget estimate due to higher large dollar permits coming in fiscal year 2025 than expected. The estimated revenues can be increased by at least $275,000 for the above projects. And whereas the remainder of the $150,000 additional funds needed for both projects would be funded by an allocation of unassigned fund balance of the general fund. And whereas an increase in appropriation would be needed to the general fund line item number 01-093-000-90012, transfer out cap non-recurring town in the amount of $100,000 for the sidewalk reconstruction and non-grant. And whereas an increase in appropriation would be needed to the general fund line item number 01-093-000-90013, transfer out cap non-recurring BOE in the amount of $325,000 for the system-wide BOE HVAC upgrades. And now, therefore, it be resolved, the Board of Selectmen hereby approves a supplemental appropriation in line item number 01-093-000-90012, transfer out cap non-recurring town in the amount of $100,000, and a supplemental appropriation in line item number 01-093-000-90013, transfer out cap non-recurring BOE in the amount of $325,000, funded through an increase in estimated revenue to line item number 01-000-000-00328, structural permits of $275,000 and $150,000 from unassigned general fund balance. And be it further resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves an increase in estimated revenues number 08-141-000-00501, transfers in general fund town of $425,000, an increase in supplemental appropriation to expenditure line item number 08-141-000-89010, Board of Education system-wide BOE HVAC upgrades in the amount of $325,000, and an increase in supplemental appropriation to expenditure line item number 08-141-000-89090. Public Works Highway Division /vehicle maintenance sidewalk construction, non-grant in the amount of $100,000.
Done.
Can you repeat that?
Can you repeat that?
Backwards.
All right, we ready to vote?
So
Oh, that's Wayne said.
yeah, so I was gonna say, did you do that in the, as a motion, or were you just reading it?
I did,
Or you're just basically using the language that we talked about?
right,
Okay,
right.
so I'll second it.
Any more discussion? So from my understanding, we're gonna,
I think the only other thing, are we gonna do motions to set the public hearing date? That's all included in this motion, or are we gonna do that?
we could do that. We could add that in, or we
Yeah.
could do that right after.
That's what
Okay.
it was for.
Yeah, so Tim, would you?
We're not voting.
Yeah, I can amend.
Yeah.
The motion to include setting a public hearing date for 2025 at 6:50 PM for a public hearing. And set a town special meeting 4/2/2025 at 6:55 PM.
And I'll second that as amended.
All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries. Yeah.
No, I think that was what he accepted as the verbiage we talked about.
Right.
So the verbiage up front, Sharon, and it included the fact that with respect to the release of the sidewalk project, before the sidewalk project would be released, that the location of that project, or the recommendations of that project would come back before the Board of Selectmen.
That was part of
Part of the original motion, yeah.
It's all wrapped together.
Yeah.
That's, everyone's all in favor of it, but I'm abstaining because I was waiting for your question to get answered.
All right.
I'm
Mike.
abstaining, but everyone else voted in favor. Okay.
By the way, thank you very much for your cooperation and flexibility tonight. I'll make sure that you guys are kept informed, and we'll keep you posted on that. And Bob, do the best you can to keep those schools running. All right, status and committee reports. We've got what?
I don't have a ton to report, other than I did get a report back that that they have been going back to do the final sealing of the well. They had to let that set for a bit, and they were back doing that. I think right now, before we can do the pump down test, we've now hit, a flood stage with the river and all that good stuff, so. We know that we have to kind of wait for that to abate, and then we can get the pump down test going.
Anything good?
No, we're gonna be hearing from Lou Pear on some items for river access. But I guess for the rest of the fellows, we're waiting for a site plan. Once we get that, we're gonna have to go through inland wetlands. We're also, Lou Pear or Mike, we're gonna get in touch with Chris Costello at Tilcon to talk about getting in there and where they want the fence, how much fencing they want, and where they want there's some big concrete blocks that are blocking the pathway that have to be moved. So we need to have probably a site visit with somebody from Tilcon, and then Jacobson's gonna be able to stake out where the roadway is gonna go. So it's moving along.
What's the sign going up?
Oh,
That's my
that's
next
the other
question.
thing.
I was gonna
Yeah,
ask that.
thanks for, actually, Lou's gonna be on your case tomorrow, I think. Talk to Public Works. Yeah, he actually went down there and put some stakes in the ground where he thought the sign should go.
Nice. My son lied, so Mike's gonna have some fun tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, very good.
Future home, baby.
Future home of, yeah, very good, very good. So nice to get that sign up after a couple of years,
Yes,
so,
yep.
very nice. I don't have anything particular tonight.
I don't have anything.
Nope, good. So only thing left, starting next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, we start doing budget discussions and deliberations. So you have all the numbers. Please review it. And we got a lot of work to do next week. Let's get it done.
Don't forget the meeting time.
Yeah.
7 o'clock Tuesday.
Yeah, I'll remind you.
I was gonna say, I'll text you.
I'll send you a message.
Jim and yeah, Jim.
It's that-
Yeah, I'll send you a text this time too.
All right. Any public comment?
Serb 139 West Cotton Hill Road. I'd like to thank you all for approving me for the 250 committee. Thank you. And then I just had a quick question on the motor vehicle, because I'm
Yeah.
still very confused on it.
The local option?
Did I hear that it's a 16%, essentially a 16% increase from the way we're using the formula now, correct?
No, the 16% was the amount that our revenue on car taxes dropped from 2024 down. It was about 16%.
What, using the different formula, what's the percentage increase? There has to be one for motor vehicle.
If I'm not mistaken, the difference.
And I won't hold you to
No,
that.
no, no. The difference it was 4%. I would say it was about 4% difference.
So what I want to say is, I believe it's a 4% increase, right? Looking at it with a different formula going from the MSRP
Right.
versus the Kelly Blue Book. So that 4% is going to be to everybody.
Right.
Not just businesses. So, right? Anybody with a motor vehicle that you would get the 4% increase. What I'm seeing is, so the commercial properties would be the ones that benefit the most with no motor vehicles, right? Because if we're not raising the mill by a third, and we're shifting that burden over to the motor vehicles, which is mostly homeowners and businesses.
Right.
But then the landlords of businesses would be the direct benefit of the whole shuffling everything, right? Because at no scenario would they go up then, other than if we did the normal way that we've always done across the board, the 1/3 of a mill increase would then just get spread evenly across everybody. But if we shift it to motor vehicle, commercial landlords would then benefit because the homeowners are still getting their increase on the motor vehicles, just like the commercial people. You found, and I don't know the exact numbers. So my point is, I appreciate you guys looking into it a little more because I'm not even sure. I think it's a wash in my world, but it's very.
And I think all the towns that I've seen, they're all struggling with that because it looks like potentially it could generate some more dollars and most municipalities need those dollars. How they get it is obviously the hard part, but it was an attempt to fix a mistake that they did by reducing the taxes down, but it's gray area on both sides. It really is.
And then and because I got a handful of phone calls on it, so I guess I'll stand up for people that called me. The other thing that a lot of business owners that called me with large fleets wanted to point out, they have options, what towns to put them in, whether it's a guy taking them home or whatever. Homeowner doesn't have options. They're getting their 4% increase regardless. Businesses have options. And if we want to be known as business friendly, and I believe we've been moving in that direction as a community over the past 10 years, I can say that I think we've done a pretty good job moving that way. I would think we might not want to then create something that would make us less attractive as far as bring fleets in, because that's free money.
Yeah.
We can't control that. We can only control the buildings that are here. The big variable, when you talk thousands of dollars on an oil truck or whatever that comes into town, those are great. They're major, and I hope you guys ask those questions to get spreadsheets, because these companies pay massive amounts of money and don't necessarily have to give it to us. They could easily put it in one of their other yards. So I just it's a double-edged sword. So keep good work. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks,
Point
man.
about the landlords.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So so more information to come. Rich Lasky's going to be working pretty hard for the next couple of days to get all the details. So that will be forthcoming. All right, any informal discussion? Do we have anything else we need to discuss that we haven't already? Budget numbers.
I'll have a couple of things probably, but I think right now we have enough on our plate.
Yeah, not much, but
Were you gonna do at some point the liaisons
One of the boards and commissions.
You know, yeah, we could do that.
Oh, I don't know if you.
Well, let me, actually, let me,
I know at some point we were gonna do that. I just wasn't sure where it fits in.
yeah, so we have a couple spots on our boards and commissions that are open. And there, and has everyone looked at the existing boards and commissions? It's decided.
No, I haven't actually looked at it.
So here's what I would suggest then. Take a look at the ones that are on there. Make sure that the ones that you're assigned to at the liaison are the ones that you want to be on. And at our next meeting, let's either confirm, verify, there are some gaps on there as well that have appeared. We want to make sure we have good continuity and good communication with all the committees out there. I think we have a really good group here in terms of keeping our eyes open to everything happening, but I think that'll be good. I'm trying to attend as many meetings as I can, either virtually or in person. I know you guys have limited time with jobs and everything else, but I know you guys are staying on top of these things as well, but let's make sure we have everything filled in there. Let's get going. And I think we need one more person. What's that? We need one more person for our 250 committee to get that started. Ben, thank you for joining on that.
Well, I have 7 people here now.
Yeah, we can get started. I think we.
Yeah,
one alternate.
We just need one
Just one
alternate,
alternate.
but I mean.
But yeah,
enough.
We can get it
should be able to
started.
start with
We
that,
should-
right?
Absolutely,
All right.
We got Sharon to pitch
Yeah.
in.
absolutely.
She's-
Sharon counts as two.
Maybe more, maybe more. So we will get that going. I know we're starting the Brownfield Committee on Monday. They will be
I
charged
saw that,
and
yeah.
go off. So maybe we'll see. We get that for next week as well. So fantastic.
Some of these don't have liaison. Is there a reason for that or?
No, they've either been removed or dropped off or something
Okay,
has happened.
so we could still.
Yes,
appoint
That's what we have to fill in.
that's what we have to
Yeah.
fill in because
Okay.
I removed some of the names on there and some
All right.
had resigned and decided not to. So. All right, I have nothing with ethics ordinance and town charter. We have too much to do with the budget first. So if that is being said, motion to adjourn,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Rick or whoever.
All those in favor, I'm in
Aye.
favor.
Aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned?
Enjoy your.
Voice
Is that where he is?
I think so.
He's on a, that's what I heard.